So let's move on to an exercise that Jesse and I like a lot to strengthen the rotator cuff. Now, as we alluded to at the outset, evolutionarily we made an enormous leap by trading stability for flexibility in the shoulder. And the price we paid for that is that we don't have the stability here that we have, say, in our hip. And so the shoulder is really stabilized by not a true ball and socket, but rather by these four muscles that make up the rotator cuff. The muscles are teres minor, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, and subscapularis. Now, anyone who's been through rehab for a shoulder injury is probably really familiar with the types of exercises that you can do, typically done as a series of four. An exercise where you move against tension this way, move against tension this way, move against tension this way, and move against tension this way. In my experience, having done all of these for many periods of time, I actually prefer one simple exercise that I'm going to show you now. And the reason is, anytime I find we're using bands, the resistance is very non-linear. And so I can never really find a perfect sweet spot where I'm using a reasonable amount of weight through the entire range of motion. So this simple exercise, which I'll show you and Jesse will walk us through, first of all, it's done with a very light weight. I will typically start at maybe 10 to 12 pounds and really never go higher than about 17.5 or 20 pounds. And I'm trying to get a maximum range of motion, and I'm obviously trying to recruit anything but this very strong set of muscles that you want to rely on.
The beauty of this exercise for me is that Peter is pinning his elbow against his knee. You'll notice in a lot of the band work that people do around the rotator cuff, the elbow's flailing all about. This really creates a fixed axis point and allows us to focus on the infraspinatus, which is a rotator cuff that's locked long on most people because our shoulder is pulled forward, and infraspinatus is an external rotator of the shoulder. So giving this a little love and a little shortening goes a long way to shoulder health. So you'll see, he'll come up, keeping that elbow pressed against the knee, coming down to his full range of motion, focusing on really accessing that rotator cuff. You can see he's shaking. This is a great example of stability of the shoulder in the rotator cuff. Great exercise for maintaining shoulder health.
While this is a reasonable position to do this exercise in, it's actually not my preferred position. Given the choice, I'd like to be sitting on a bench and have the knee that I'm using to support my elbow up on a dumbbell rack. That seems to, at least for me, put me in the perfect position to get the maximal range of motion without anything that's taking my attention off what I'm doing.